Rob Seacoe, Future Farm. Today's innovations, tomorrow's solutions.
We're on Future Farm this morning, and we're going to talk about innovative ways to deal with residue. We're standing in front of a Rob Seacoe and Streamline Ag research trial, and this corn's going to make about 250, 275 bushels per acre. And at 44 pounds of residue per bushel of yield, that's about 5.5 tons of residue that we're going to have to deal with. So let's talk about how do we deal with that?
No, that's exactly right. That's a lot of residue to have to manage, because what that residue does, it can tie up a lot of nutrients. It can make it difficult to plant into this next spring. And so we're going to have to figure out ways to manage around that. And there are a couple of ways to do that, Todd. What would some of those be?
Yeah, and frankly, it's not just the residue tying up the nutrient, but it's also a factor of what happens with all that buffer out there, because it's protecting the soil surface. And so as you come to the spring, you'll warm up slower, you'll hold more moisture, and the more moisture that the surface soil holds, the slower it also then moves in temperature as well. So what we're looking at doing now, guys, is we're applying what we call a residue digester, which is a supplemental application of microbial activity to that residue that this is going to come off today. And so we'll come right out here and we'll make that application of a residue digester that's full of bacteria.
That's exactly right. So what kind of impact would that have on next year's crop?
So as we make that application, we'd really like to make those applications as soon as harvest comes off in the fall. So we have higher soil temperatures, we have good air temperatures, and hopefully we get some fall rainfall to activate and have that microbial activity become active and start to feed. And then they actually excrete inorganic compounds, inorganic nutrients that the crop can take up at a more rapid pace. So we may see an increase in nutrient availability earlier in the season.
That's exactly right. So that means that when that crop is growing and it needs the nutrients in order to determine its yield potential, it actually has access to a lot of those nutrients earlier, can increase the total yield potential, and that's just good for the crop overall. But do we also see some benefits in terms of plantability in these fields too? I mean, that stover is really hard to get through.
Absolutely, and think about the performance. This is going to be at least 250 bushel crop, so it's healthy, it's high performing, and it's got great stock quality. And if you come out here, if you try to drive across this after this crop's come off, you'll puncture holes in your tires. So we really need to try and break that down. And these residue digesters, they will break down the inner portion of the stalk, not necessarily the outer portion, but the pith, the vascular bundles, the xylem and the phloem, and we'll reduce the overall dry matter weight of that residue without losing the shell and the protection on the soil surface to catch snow and to keep down dirt from blowing and moving and soil erosion.
The product we use here is called, on Future Farm, is called Residue Release, and it was used multiple locations last year on corn stalks treated with Residue Release. The following soybean crop produced another 3.8 bushels more yield. And on a corn-on-corn situation, it was about 9 bushels. So there is a real advantage, a measurable advantage in terms of yield.
So better benefit out of nutrient application early, more robust plant, just overall better performance.
So we can get some real benefits out of properly managing our residue.